The Velnari war fleet assembled in high orbit above their homeworld, a display of military power meant to intimidate anyone watching. 200 warships, each bristling with weapons and carrying thousands of soldiers. It was the largest fleet the Velnari had mobilized in 50 years. Velthron himself supervised the preparations from the bridge of the flagship supremacy, confident that this show of force would bring the stubborn humans back under council control. "All ships report ready, Arbiter," his second-in-command announced. "We can depart on your order." Velthron gazed at the assembled fleet with satisfaction. 200 ships would be more than enough to overwhelm whatever pathetic defenses the humans had managed to build in their exile. The intelligence reports suggested humans had perhaps 50 combat vessels, maybe 100 if they had been building frantically. Against 200 Velnari warships, resistance would be suicide. "Set course for the Kepler cluster," Velthron ordered. "Maximum speed. Let us remind humanity of their place in the galaxy." The fleet jumped into faster-than-light travel, disappearing in flashes of blue light. Behind them, Council space continued its slow collapse. 3 more species had declared independence in the past week. The Dravok and Kresh were still on the brink of war. Smaller conflicts erupted daily, but Velthron believed that bringing humanity to heel would solve everything. Fear would restore order. He was wrong about many things. In the Kepler cluster, Admiral Deho watched the holographic display tracking the Velnari fleet's approach. His command center was deep inside Haven Station, surrounded by layers of armor and defensive systems. Around him, dozens of officers monitored every aspect of humanity's military readiness. "They're not being subtle," Captain Soman observed. "That fleet formation is designed for intimidation, not tactical efficiency." "Good," Deho replied. "Overconfidence is our advantage." "Fleet Coordinator Sora, are our ships in position?" Sora, a young officer with sharp analytical skills, checked her displays. "All 800 ships are deployed according to the battle plan. They're cloaked using the new precursor technology. The Velnari scanners won't detect them until we want to be seen." "Excellent. What about the defensive platforms?" "All 200 platforms are active and hidden in the asteroid field. Each one has enough firepower to disable multiple enemy ships." Deho nodded. The Kepler cluster had been transformed over the past 6 months into the most fortified location in the galaxy. The Council thought humans had fled to this region because they had nowhere else to go. In reality, humans had chosen it precisely because its complex asteroid fields and dense stellar phenomena made it easy to hide massive military installations. "They'll arrive in 6 hours," Deho announced to his command staff. "Remember, our objective is to disable their fleet, not destroy it. We want prisoners, not corpses. Every shot must be precise, no unnecessary casualties." "Sir, why show mercy?" asked a young tactical officer. "They came here to conquer us." "Because mercy demonstrates strength," Deho explained. "Any fool can kill. It takes real power to defeat an enemy without destroying them. We want the Council to understand what we are. We want them to fear our capability, not hate us for slaughter." 6 hours later, the Velnari fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kepler cluster. Velthron expected to see scattered human defenses, maybe a few desperate ships trying to look threatening. Instead, his scanners showed nothing. The cluster appeared empty except for asteroids and stellar dust. "Where are they?" Velthron demanded. "Scan the entire system. Find their ships." His crew worked frantically, but the scanners found nothing. No ships, no stations, no energy signatures. It was as if the humans had vanished entirely. "They ran," one of his officers suggested. "They knew we were coming and fled deeper into the cluster." Velthron frowned. Something felt wrong. The humans had built a capital here. They would not simply abandon it without a fight. "Proceed carefully. Battle formation, shields at maximum. Something is not right." The Velnari fleet moved forward in a defensive pattern, weapons armed, expecting an ambush. They were correct to be cautious, but their caution would not save them. "Admiral, the Velnari fleet has entered weapons range," Sora reported from her station. "Very well," Deho said calmly. "Decode the cloak. Let them see what they're facing." Throughout the Kepler cluster, 800 human warships suddenly became visible, appearing as if materializing from nothing. They surrounded the Velnari fleet in a perfect sphere, with multiple ships targeting each enemy vessel. The Velnari scanners went crazy, trying to process the impossible numbers they were detecting. On the Supremacy's bridge, chaos erupted. Officers shouted conflicting reports. The tactical display showed red hostile markers everywhere. Velthron stared in disbelief at the numbers. 800 ships. 800. How was this possible? Hail them, Velthron ordered, his voice shaking slightly. Demand their surrender. A communication channel opened and Admiral Deho's face appeared on the main screen. He looked completely calm, almost bored. Arbiter Velthron, this is Admiral Deho of the Terran Defense Fleet. You have entered human territory with hostile intent. I am giving you one opportunity to withdraw peacefully. You are outnumbered, Velthron said, trying to regain his confidence. Surrender now and we will show mercy. Deho raised an eyebrow. Arbiter, I do not think you understand your situation. You brought 200 ships, I have 800. Your vessels are surrounded, your shields are no match for our weapons, and you have no reinforcements within 10 light years. I suggest you reconsider who should be surrendering. Impossible. Human technology is inferior. You cannot have ships this advanced. Our intelligence says you barely have 50 combat vessels. Your intelligence was wrong about many things, Deho replied. You were warned. You chose this. Now you will learn what humanity really is. Velthron made a fatal decision. Pride and fury overwhelmed his judgment. All ships open fire, destroy them. The Velnari fleet fired their weapons simultaneously, hundreds of energy beams and missiles streaking through space toward the human ships. For a moment, it looked like an overwhelming attack. Then the human ships responded, and the Velnari learned the true meaning of overwhelming force. Human weapons technology had advanced far beyond what the Council knew. The railguns humanity had developed using precursor technology fired projectiles at speeds that made them nearly impossible to dodge. These projectiles punched through Velnari shields as if they did not exist, striking ships with surgical precision. But the humans were not aiming to destroy. Each shot disabled specific systems. Engines went offline. Weapon systems failed. Communication arrays shorted out. Within minutes, the Velnari fleet was crippled, their ships drifting helplessly in space, unable to fight back or escape. Pilot Yang led a squadron of fast attack craft toward the Supremacy. His targeting computer, enhanced with precursor AI assistance, identified weak points in the flagship's defenses. He fired a series of precise shots that disabled the ship's main engines and command systems without rupturing the hull. Flagship disabled, Admiral, Yang reported. No casualties detected. Throughout the cluster, the battle continued for exactly 17 minutes. When it ended, all 200 Velnari ships were disabled but intact. Not a single one had been destroyed. Casualties were minimal, mostly injuries from failed systems and emergency shutdowns. The human fleet held position around the crippled Velnari vessels, weapons still trained on them waiting. On the Supremacy, Velthron sat in darkness. Emergency power provided minimal lighting. The bridge was silent except for the sound of damaged systems sparking. His crew looked at him in shock and fear. A communication channel opened without his permission. Deho's face appeared again. Arbiter Velthron, your fleet is disabled. Your crews are unharmed but trapped. I am now going to explain your situation very clearly. You came here believing humans were weak. You thought we had fled in fear. You assumed we needed the Council. Every one of those beliefs was wrong. How? Velthron whispered. How did you hide this fleet? Our intelligence watched you for 15 years. You saw what we wanted you to see, Deho replied. While you thought we were building 50 ships, in Council space we were building thousands in places you never looked. While you believed we were technologically inferior, we were reverse engineering technology you did not know existed. While you thought we needed your protection, we were signing alliances with every major power in the galaxy. You saw weakness because we wanted you to see weakness. Why? Why hide this strength? Because we learned early that the galaxy respects fear more than cooperation. If we had shown our true military power from the beginning, you would have united against us out of fear. So we played weak. We played dependent. We let you feel superior while we prepared for the day you would inevitably turn on us. Deho leaned forward, his expression hardening. You demanded our surrender. You classified us as inferior. You threatened our sovereignty. And when we refused, you came to conquer us with force. So now you face the consequences of your arrogance. What will you do with us? Velthron asked, dreading the answer. We will repair your ships enough to return home. We will send you back to the Council with a message. Tell them that humanity is done playing weak. Admiral Deho stood on the bridge of the carrier Indomitable, watching the holographic display that showed humanity's presence across the galaxy. Blue dots represented human colonies, stations, and outposts. There were hundreds of them scattered across Council space. As he watched, those blue dots began disappearing one by one, winking out as evacuation ships transported their populations to safety. Status report, he ordered, his voice calm despite the massive operation underway. Captain Summon stepped forward, her tablet glowing with data. All civilian transports are on schedule, Admiral. We've evacuated 42 colonies in the past 72 hours. Another 38 will be empty by week's end. The Council hasn't noticed yet. They're too busy celebrating their victory. Deho nodded. Good. Keep the evacuation quiet. Use the commercial shipping routes. Make it look like normal traffic. The moment they realize what we're doing, they'll try to interfere. Yes, sir. Also, the last batch of transport ships reported that the infrastructure is ready. Everything is functional and operational, just as Ambassador Hyun requested. Perfect. Deho allowed himself a thin smile. Let them have their prizes. Those cities and farms and factories will keep them busy while we do the real work. Across the galaxy, the Great Withdrawal continued. Millions of humans packed their belongings and boarded ships, leaving behind homes they had built over decades. Some were confused, others angry at abandoning so much. But orders were orders, and they trusted their leaders had good reasons. What the evacuees did not know was that they were not truly abandoning anything. Every human settlement left behind was fully operational, complete with automated systems, full warehouses, and functioning infrastructure. To any observer, it would look like humanity had fled in panic, leaving everything behind. But there were no observers watching carefully. The Council was too busy dividing the spoils. Far from Council space, in a region of darkness between spiral arms, something else was happening. Engineer Junho floated in zero gravity inside a massive construction bay carved into an asteroid. Around him, thousands of workers operated machinery that assembled hull plates, wired control systems, and installed weapons that officially did not exist. How are we looking? Asked a voice through his helmet communicator. Junho checked his data pad. Bay 7 is at 93% completion. Bay 12 needs another week for the weapons integration, but overall we're ahead of schedule. By the time the Council figures out what we're doing, we'll have 50 new ships ready to launch. Only 50? The voice sounded disappointed. 50 from this facility alone, Junho corrected. There are 47 other construction sites running similar operations. Do the math. We'll have over 2,000 new warships within 6 months. The voice whistled in appreciation. The Council thinks we barely have 300 combat vessels. Yes, they do. And we've worked very hard to maintain that illusion. Junho moved to a viewport and looked out at the construction site. Ships of all sizes floated in various stages of assembly, from bare skeletons to nearly complete vessels. None of them appeared on any official registry. None of them had ever been seen by Council observers. Humanity had been building this secret fleet for 40 years, long before they ever joined the Council. Hidden in ice moons, hollow asteroids, and the dark spaces between stars, these shipyards had operated continuously, producing vessels that would shock anyone who believed humans were technologically inferior. On a research station orbiting a frozen world, Dr. Hana reviewed her findings with growing concern. Before her floated holographic models of 47 different alien species, each one showing detailed biological information. Genetic structures, immune systems, metabolic processes, everything humanity had learned during their 15 years of Council membership. This feels wrong, said her assistant, a young researcher named Kwan. It is wrong, Hana agreed, but necessary. We need to know their weaknesses just in case. In case of what? In case they decide that expelling us isn't enough. In case they come after us. In case we need to defend ourselves in ways we'd rather not think about. Quan studied the data. These biological agents you've designed, they're incredibly specific. Each one targets a single species with almost no risk of cross-contamination. That's the point. If we ever need to use them, which I hope we never do, we can do so precisely. No collateral damage, no extinction events, just enough to make them back down. Do the admirals know about this? Admiral Deho knows. President Sunwoo knows. That's all who need to know. Hana closed the files, and hopefully it will stay theoretical. These weapons exist as insurance, nothing more. Back in Council space, the first signs of trouble began appearing. 3 Council survey ships, sent to patrol the borders of former human territory, failed to report in. Search parties found nothing but scattered debris in systems where humans had maintained outposts just days before. The Council's initial response was bureaucratic indifference. Ships went missing sometimes. Space was dangerous. Probably pirates or navigation failures. Nothing to worry about. But these were not random disappearances. Each ship had vanished while investigating human facilities. And if anyone had examined the debris carefully, they would have noticed something strange about the damage patterns. These ships had been disabled, not destroyed. Their crews had been taken alive, transported somewhere unknown. Somewhere far from Council space, those crews were being held in comfortable detention. They were fed, housed, and treated well. But they were prisoners nonetheless, insurance against Council aggression. The Council did not know this yet. On Station Zenith, Trade Minister Hyerin maintained her cover as a cultural liaison. She spent her days attending boring diplomatic functions, smiling at aliens who barely acknowledged her presence, and seemingly doing very little of importance. In reality, she monitored every communication channel available, gathering intelligence about the Council's plans. Her latest report to President Sunwoo was concerning. The Council had begun redistributing human territories almost immediately. The Velnari claimed the richest systems. Other species fought over the rest like scavengers over a carcass. Ancient rivalries were resurfacing as the careful balance humanity had maintained began to collapse. They don't see it yet, Hyerin wrote in her encrypted message. But we were the glue holding their alliance together. We mediated disputes. We maintained the trade networks. We kept the peace between species that hated each other. Now that we're gone, everything is starting to crack. President Sunwoo read the report in his office aboard the new capital station in the Kepler cluster. The Kepler cluster was humanity's true home base, located in a region the Council considered useless, too far from major trade routes to be valuable. That was exactly why humans had chosen it. How long before they turn on each other? He asked Admiral Deho, who stood nearby. Based on Hyerin's analysis, 6 to 8 months before open conflict. Maybe sooner if the Dravok and Kresh keep pushing each other over those mining rights. Good. The longer they fight among themselves, the less attention they pay to us. Sunwoo looked at the star chart on his wall. It showed human territory, both official and hidden. The official territories were tiny, a fraction of what humans actually controlled. The hidden territories stretched across vast regions the Council did not know existed. The deep space operations are proceeding well, Deho continued. We've established mining operations in 7 new systems, all beyond Council scanner range. Resource extraction is exceeding projections, and Scout Yunbi just returned with interesting news. What kind of news? She found ruins. Old ruins. Precursor civilization. Probably extinct for millions of years. But their technology is intact, just dormant. If we can figure out how it works, we'll have an advantage the Council can't match. Sunwoo felt a chill of excitement. How long to analyze it? Scientist Changmin is already working on it. He says the encryption is complex but crackable. Give him 3 months. He has 2. I want every advantage we can get before the Council realizes they made a mistake. Across the galaxy, humanity's true plan unfolded in secret. While the Council celebrated their victory and divided human territories, humanity was consolidating power in regions the Council did not value. While the Council believed humans were weak and scattered, humanity was building the largest military fleet in galactic history. While the Council thought they had crushed human ambition, humanity was unlocking technology beyond anything currently known. And through it all, the Council smiled and laughed and congratulated themselves on handling the human problem so effectively. They saw exactly what humanity wanted them to see: a defeated species, running away with their tails between their legs, abandoning valuable resources in their panic. Not one council member suspected the truth. Not yet. Captain Soman completed the last evacuation run and transmitted her report to Admiral Deho. All personnel evacuated from council space. All infrastructure left operational as ordered. We're ghosts now, sir. As far as the council knows, we've disappeared completely. Excellent work, Captain. Return to Kepler Cluster and prepare your fleet for the next phase. What is the next phase, sir? Admiral Deho smiled. We wait, we build, and we let them destroy themselves. When the time is right, we'll show them what humanity really is, but not yet. For now, let them enjoy their victory. They've earned it. 6 months had passed since humanity's departure from council space. In the grand chambers of Station Zenith, the mood was celebratory. The economy was booming. Trade flourished. The council's coffers swelled with wealth extracted from former human territories. By every official measure, the decision to expel humanity had been a complete success. Velthron addressed the assembled council with pride evident in his voice. My fellow representatives, I present the quarterly economic report. As you can see, revenue is up 37% since the humans departed. Crime has decreased in the core systems, and our military no longer wastes resources protecting ungrateful primitives. This is a golden age for the council. Applause echoed through the chamber. Representatives congratulated each other on their wisdom. Some species had expanded their territories significantly. The Velnari controlled twice as many systems as before. The Dravok Empire had claimed rich mining worlds. The Kresh Dominion had taken over human agricultural colonies. Everything seemed perfect. But beneath the surface, cracks were forming. Trade Minister Hyaron sat in her quiet office on Zenith, monitoring communications as she had done for months. Her official duties kept her busy with meaningless paperwork, but her real work happened through encrypted channels and careful observation. What she saw disturbed her. She composed a message to President Sunwoo, her fingers moving quickly across the keyboard. The council celebrates, but the situation is deteriorating faster than predicted. The Dravok and Kresh nearly went to war last week over mining rights in System 47. Only direct council intervention prevented conflict. Similar tensions are appearing everywhere. She paused, reviewing her data. The council doesn't understand what they've lost. Humans mediated disputes constantly. We managed the trade networks. We kept old enemies from each other's throats. Without us, ancient rivalries are resurfacing. The council military is stretched thin trying to maintain order. They're requesting mercenary support from independent powers. Hyaron attached detailed reports showing economic data, military movements, and diplomatic communications. The picture was clear to anyone who looked closely. The council's prosperity was an illusion built on unstable ground. President Sunwoo read her report in his office aboard Haven Station, humanity's new capital in the Kepler cluster. The station was massive, larger than anything humans had built in council space. Around it orbited hundreds of ships, construction platforms, research facilities, and defensive platforms. This was humanity's real home, hidden in a region the council considered worthless. They're beginning to fracture, Sunwoo said to Admiral Deho, who stood by the window watching ships move through the darkness. Just as we predicted. Sooner than predicted, actually, Deho replied. Our models suggested it would take a year. It's only been 6 months and they're already at each other's throats. We kept them together without even realizing it. Every dispute we mediated, every trade agreement we facilitated, every cultural exchange we organized, it all added up to stability. Now that stability is gone, and they blame each other instead of recognizing what they lost. Deho turned from the window. Hyaron reports the Velnari are becoming aggressive. They're trying to impose new regulations on smaller species, essentially making them vassals. How are the smaller species responding? Rebellion. There have been 3 uprisings in the past month. The council military is exhausted. They're not used to handling this much internal conflict. Sunwoo nodded slowly. Good. The more distracted they are, the more time we have. Speaking of time, what's Changmin's progress on the precursor technology? Admiral Deho smiled. You'll want to hear this directly from him. I've asked him to join us. A few minutes later, scientist Changmin entered the office carrying a tablet and looking exhausted but excited. His hair was messy, his uniform wrinkled. He had clearly been working without rest, Mr. President, he said, slightly breathless. We've done it. We've cracked the encryption on the precursor data. Show me, Sunwoo said, leaning forward. Changmin activated a holographic display. It showed complex diagrams, equations, and three-dimensional models that seemed to shift and change. The precursor civilization was incredibly advanced. They had technology that makes current council science look primitive, faster than light communication without relay stations, power generation at scales we can barely understand, weapons that can disable entire fleets without destroying them, and most importantly, cloaking technology that makes ships completely invisible to all known sensors. How long until we can replicate this technology? Daeho asked. Some of it we can implement immediately. The communication systems are compatible with our current technology. We just need to build the devices. Other systems will take longer. The cloaking technology requires materials we'll need to synthesize. But I estimate within 3 months we can have working prototypes of everything. Sunwoo felt excitement building in his chest but kept his expression calm. And the Council has no idea these ruins exist? None. The system containing the ruins is in deep space far beyond their exploration range. Scout Yunbi only found it because she was searching in areas the Council considers empty and useless. Excellent work, Changmin. Make this your top priority. I want those prototypes as fast as possible. After Changmin left, Sunwoo and Daeho discussed the implications. With precursor technology, humanity would have an advantage the Council could never match. But they needed to be careful about how and when to reveal it. Meanwhile, in Council space, the situation continued to deteriorate. The Dravok and Kresh conflict over mining rights escalated. Both empires moved military forces into the disputed system. Thousands of ships faced each other across the void. Weapons armed, tensions at breaking point. The Council held emergency sessions, trying to negotiate a peaceful resolution. But without experienced human mediators, the talks went nowhere. Both sides refused to back down. Pride and old grudges made compromise impossible. Velthran found himself in an impossible position. If he supported the Dravok, the Kresh would rebel. If he supported the Kresh, the Dravok would leave the Council. If he did nothing, war would erupt and the Council's authority would be destroyed. For the first time, Velthran began to understand what humanity's departure actually meant. The humans had been more than just another member species. They had been the oil in the machine, keeping everything running smoothly. Without them, the machine was grinding to a halt. But Velthran was too proud to admit this mistake. Instead, he sent requests to mercenary companies and independent military powers, offering contracts to help maintain Council security. The responses shocked him. Every major mercenary organization declined. Every independent power refused to get involved. Some gave polite excuses. Others were more direct. One message simply said, "We have agreements with other parties that prevent us from accepting your offer." Velthran did not understand. What agreements? With whom? The answer was humanity, of course. While the Council had been celebrating their victory, humanity had been busy signing non-aggression pacts with every significant military power in the known galaxy. These pacts included generous trade agreements, technology exchanges, and most importantly, clauses that prevented signing mercenaries or military support to the Council. Humanity had isolated the Council diplomatically without anyone noticing. Intelligence operative. Jiwan worked from a small ship that constantly moved between systems, never staying in one place long enough to be traced. Her job was delicate and dangerous. She leaked classified Council communications to independent news networks. She exposed corruption among Council officials. She provided resources and intelligence to species rebelling against Velnari control. All of it was untraceable to humanity. The Council suspected information was being leaked but could not find the source. They blamed each other, which only increased internal paranoia and conflict. Jiwan's latest operation was particularly effective. She had obtained communications showing that Velthran planned to impose a new tax on all 3rd and 4th tier species. The tax would essentially bankrupt smaller Council members while enriching the Velnari and their allies. When this information became public, 16 species immediately began organizing resistance. The Council was fracturing, and they still did not understand why. Defense analyst Minho presented his findings to the Human War Council in a secure conference room on Haven Station. The Velnari are mobilizing a military fleet. Intelligence suggests they intend to move toward the Kepler cluster within 2 months. They're coming after us? President Sunwoo asked. Yes. Velthron believes that bringing humanity back into the council by force will restore order. He thinks other species will fall in line once humans are subjugated again. Admiral Deho laughed, a harsh sound without humor. He thinks we're weak. He thinks our withdrawal was surrender. He has no idea what he's walking into. We need to prepare, Sunwoo said. How many ships are they bringing? Current estimates suggest 200 warships, possibly more. It's a significant force, and we have 800 fully armed warships ready for deployment. Another 300 completing final preparations. And with Changmin's precursors? The grand chamber of Station Zenith floated in the darkness of space, a massive structure that housed the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Inside its main hall, representatives from 47 different alien species sat in their designated seats, arranged in a perfect circle. The ceiling stretched high above, showing the stars through transparent panels. At the center of the room stood a single platform where those who wished to speak would present their case. Ambassador Hyun walked slowly to the platform, his black uniform neat and pressed. Behind him came Mira, a woman with sharp eyes who served as humanity's military advisor, and Taeyang, a young scientist carrying a datapad. The three humans looked small compared to the massive aliens surrounding them. Some species stood 3 times taller than any human. Others had multiple arms, strange skin colors, or features that seemed impossible. At the highest seat sat Velthran, the leader of the Velnari species. His skin shimmered with a purple glow, and his 4 eyes looked down at the humans with barely hidden contempt. He had called this meeting, and everyone in the chamber knew what would happen next. Velthran spoke, his voice amplified through the chamber's systems. Ambassador Hyun of Earth, the Council has reached a decision regarding humanity's status in our alliance. After careful consideration of your species' behavior over the past 15 years, we have concluded that humans pose a significant risk to galactic peace. Hyun stood perfectly still, his face showing no emotion. He had expected this. Your species is too aggressive, Velthran continued, too unpredictable. Too young to understand the delicate balance we have maintained for thousands of years. Therefore, the Council demands the following. Humanity must surrender all military vessels to Council control. You must accept Council oversight of all your colonies. And you must accept classification as a third-tier member species. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Third-tier status meant humanity would have no voting rights, no protection under Council law, and would be required to pay heavy taxes while receiving almost nothing in return. It was essentially slavery with better words. Mira's jaw tightened, but she remained silent. Taeyang continued staring at his datapad, though his fingers had stopped moving. You have 1 standard week to comply, Velthran said, leaning back in his seat with satisfaction. Refuse, and humanity will be expelled from Council space entirely. You will lose access to all trade routes, all diplomatic protections, and all technological exchanges. I trust you understand what this means. The chamber fell silent. Every eye turned to Hyun, waiting for the inevitable plea for mercy, for negotiation, for more time. These young species always begged when faced with reality. Hyun looked up at Velthran, then slowly scanned the entire chamber, making eye contact with as many representatives as possible. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm and clear. No. The single word echoed through the chamber. Several aliens shifted in their seats. This was not the response they expected, no? Velthran repeated, his 4 eyes narrowing. You refuse the Council's generous terms? There is nothing generous about slavery, Hyun replied. Humanity will not surrender our sovereignty. We will not submit to oversight by those who view us as inferior, and we certainly will not accept third-tier status. Velthran's skin color deepened to an angry shade of crimson. Then you choose expulsion. You realize your species cannot survive without Council protection, without our trade networks, without our technology? Hyun smiled slightly, a gesture that made several Council members uncomfortable. We survived just fine before we met you, Arbiter Velthran. We will survive just fine after we leave. Impossible, said another Council member, an insect-like creature called Dresh. Your colonies depend on Council shipping lanes. Your economy relies on our markets. Your military cannot defend against the pirates and raiders that plague the outer systems. You need us, perhaps, Hyun acknowledged. Or perhaps you have mistaken dependence for convenience. Either way, humanity's answer is final. We reject your ultimatum entirely. He turned to leave, Mira and Taiyang falling in step behind him. The chamber erupted in noise, dozens of species talking at once. Some sounded shocked, others amused, a few genuinely confused. "You will regret this decision," Velthran called after them. "Within a year you will come crawling back, begging us to accept you on any terms. Your pride will be your destruction." Hyun paused at the chamber's entrance and looked back. "We will see, Arbiter. We will see." As the doors closed behind the human delegation, the chamber filled with laughter. The representatives smiled at each other, shaking their heads at human foolishness. Velthran allowed himself a satisfied smirk. Let the primitives try to survive on their own. When they failed, the lesson would be remembered by every other upstart species in the galaxy. But not everyone was laughing. In a shadowed corner of the chamber sat Jiho, a junior human diplomat who had observed the entire proceeding. She had been stationed at Zenith for 2 years, officially serving as a cultural liaison but actually gathering intelligence. Now she watched carefully as certain council members did not join in the mockery. The Kelthros representative remained still, his ancient eyes thoughtful. 3 other species from the outer rim exchanged glances that seemed more concerned than amused. They had noticed something the others had not. Jiho made careful notes on her personal device, marking which species laughed and which stayed silent. This information would matter later. Outside the chamber, Hyun, Mira, and Taiyang walked through the station's corridors toward the docking bay where their ship waited. They passed various aliens, many of whom stopped to stare or whisper among themselves. News traveled fast on Zenith. "That went exactly as expected," Mira said quietly when they were alone in an elevator. "Too well, almost," Taiyang added. Velthran played his part perfectly. Arrogant, dismissive, completely convinced of his superiority. Hyun nodded. "Good. The more confident they are in our weakness, the less attention they'll pay to what we're actually doing." "Has Deho begun the withdrawal?" "Admiral Deho started evacuating the outer colonies 3 hours ago," Mira confirmed. "The Council won't detect the movement for at least another day. By then, we'll have removed 70% of our mobile assets." "And the infrastructure we're leaving behind?" Hyun asked. Taeyang smiled. "Fully functional, just as planned. Let them think we're incompetent. Let them think we're abandoning valuable resources out of panic. They'll fight over the scraps while we disappear." The elevator reached the docking level. As they walked toward their ship, Hyun allowed himself a small smile. The Council thought they had won. They thought humanity was weak, desperate, dependent. They had no idea what was coming. In the distance, 3 Council survey ships prepared to patrol the borders of former human space. Within a week, all 3 would vanish without a trace. The Council would notice briefly, before dismissing it as navigational errors. They would not connect those disappearances to humanity's departure. They would not understand the message until much later, when understanding came far too late. Hyun boarded the ship and took one last look at Station Zenith through the viewport. "Goodbye, Council," he said softly. "Enjoy your victory. We'll see you again when the time is right." The ship's engines hummed to life and humanity's representatives departed from Council space. Behind them, the galaxy's most powerful beings celebrated their triumph, completely unaware that they had just made the greatest mistake in their civilization's history. "Tell them we have military superiority they cannot match. Tell them the news spread through the galaxy like fire through dry grass." Within days, every major power knew about the Battle of Kepler Cluster. The Velnari had brought 200 warships to conquer humanity, and had been completely defeated in 17 minutes. 200 ships disabled without a single one destroyed, not by overwhelming them with numbers but with technology and precision that seemed impossible. On Station Zenith, emergency council sessions ran day and night. Representatives shouted at each other, blame flying in every direction. How had their intelligence been so wrong? How had humans hidden such military strength? Most importantly, what did this mean for the Council's future? Velthran was removed from his position as High Arbiter within hours of his return. His political career was destroyed. The shame of his defeat would follow him forever. But his replacement, a Kelthros representative named Therax, faced an even more difficult situation. The Council was fracturing, and now everyone knew that humanity was not just independent but militarily superior to any single Council member. Trade Minister Hyerin sat in her office on Zenith, watching the chaos unfold around her. Representatives from smaller species approached her constantly now, asking questions, seeking information about humanity's intentions. The power dynamic had shifted completely. Suddenly, humans were not the expelled primitives, but the mysterious force everyone needed to understand. She sent regular reports to President Sunwoo, describing the Council's disintegration in detail. The smaller species are terrified, she wrote. Not of humanity, but of the Velnari and their allies. They see what happened to Velthron's fleet and realize they have no protection. Many are considering leaving the Council entirely. The Dravok and Kresh conflict has escalated again. Without Velnari enforcement, they are actually fighting now. Small skirmishes, but it could become full war. The Council military is paralyzed, afraid to take action without knowing what humanity might do. Most interesting, 32 species have quietly sent diplomatic inquiries to our embassy here, asking about the possibility of separate peace treaties with humanity. They want to know if we are accepting allies. President Sunwoo read her reports with satisfaction. Everything was proceeding according to plan. Humanity had demonstrated strength without unnecessary cruelty. Now came the next phase, building something new from the Council's collapse. Send responses to those 32 species, Sunwoo instructed. Tell them humanity is open to alliances based on mutual respect and equality. No tears, no subjugation, true partnership. And make it clear that any species tired of Council bureaucracy has an alternative. Admiral Deho announced the formation of the Terran Commonwealth 3 weeks after the battle. The announcement was broadcast across every communication network in the galaxy, impossible to ignore or suppress. The Terran Commonwealth is not an empire, Deho's recorded message explained. It is not a hierarchy. It is a voluntary alliance of free species who believe in cooperation over domination, equality over classification, and strength through unity rather than fear. Any species may petition to join. Members retain full sovereignty over their internal affairs. Decisions affecting the Commonwealth as a whole require consensus, not majority vote. We share technology, resources, and protection freely among members. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within 48 hours, 17 species formally applied to join the Commonwealth. Within a week, that number reached 33. These were not just small, weak species seeking protection. Several were mid-tier council members with significant military and economic power. They saw the Commonwealth as an alternative to a council that had failed them. Captain Soman was assigned to manage the diplomatic process of bringing new members into the Commonwealth. She worked with teams of translators, cultural specialists, and legal experts to ensure each species understood what membership meant and that their needs would be met. This is more complicated than I expected, she admitted to Admiral Deho during one of their planning meetings. Each species has different expectations, different fears, different requirements. How do we create a unified alliance from such diversity? By not forcing uniformity, Deho replied. The council failed because it tried to make everyone the same, organized by arbitrary tiers. We succeed by accepting differences and finding ways to make those differences complementary. A species good at manufacturing works with species good at resource extraction. Peaceful cultures focus on science while warrior cultures provide security. Everyone contributes what they do best. And if conflicts arise between members, then we do what we did best in the council before they expelled us. We mediate. We negotiate. We find compromise. That is the service that made us valuable before, and it will make the Commonwealth strong now. The Kelthros mediator Therax, now serving as the council's high arbiter, found himself in an impossible position. Half his council was falling apart. Species were leaving. Others were fighting. The council military was demoralized and ineffective. Meanwhile, the Terran Commonwealth grew stronger every day, offering everything the council claimed to provide but actually delivered on its promises. Therax was not a fool like Velthran. He understood what had happened. He also understood that pride would only make things worse, so he made a decision that would have been unthinkable months ago. He requested a meeting with Ambassador Hyun to discuss terms for peace and cooperation between the Council and the Commonwealth. The Council wishes to extend an offer of formal recognition to the Terran Commonwealth, Therax said when they met in a neutral conference room. We acknowledge humanity's sovereignty and military superiority. We seek to end hostilities and establish diplomatic relations. Hyun listened carefully, noting what was said and what was not said. Recognition, not apology, not reparations, just recognition. The Commonwealth appreciates the Council's offer. Hyun replied diplomatically. However, simple recognition is not sufficient. We require substantive changes, and what kind of changes? First, the Council's tier system must be abolished. All species must have equal voting rights. Second, former human territories currently occupied by Council members must be subject to neutral arbitration to determine rightful ownership. Third, the Council must formally apologize for its treatment of humanity and commit to preventing such abuses in the future. Fourth, the Council must accept Commonwealth observers at all major Council sessions to ensure transparency. Therax felt a mixture of relief and resignation. The demands were firm but not vindictive. Humanity was not seeking revenge, just justice and security. I will present these terms to the Council. But I suspect many will accept. We have little choice. You always had choices, Arbiter Therax. You simply made poor ones. Now you have the opportunity to make better choices. I suggest you take it. While the diplomatic negotiations proceeded, Dr. Hana prepared for the most controversial part of humanity's strategy. President Sunwoo had decided to reveal the biological weapons research, not to threaten but to demonstrate restraint. Hana stood before the Commonwealth Council, a new governing body representing all member species, and presented her findings. Holographic displays showed detailed biological agents, each one designed to target a specific Council species with precision and minimal collateral damage. These weapons exist, Hana explained, her voice steady despite the tension in the room. We developed them during our time in the Council as insurance against potential threats. Each one is incredibly specific, targeting genetic markers unique to individual species. They could have been deployed during the Battle of Kepler Cluster. They could have exterminated the Velnari fleet with no risk to human forces. She paused, letting that sink in. We chose not to use them. We chose to disable Velnari ships without killing their crews. We chose mercy when we had the capability for genocide. And now we are destroying these weapons permanently. The holographic display showed the biological agents being broken down at the molecular level, rendered permanently inert. The destruction was real, conducted in front of Commonwealth observers who verified every step. Why reveal this? Asked a representative from a species that had recently joined the Commonwealth. You could have kept it secret, maintained that advantage. Because threats build fear and fear builds hatred, Hana replied. We want the galaxy to understand our capabilities, yes, but more importantly, we want them to understand our principles. We have the power to destroy, but we choose to build instead. That choice is what makes us strong. The revelation sent shockwaves through the galaxy. The Council finally understood how completely they had underestimated humanity. Humans had possessed weapons capable of exterminating Council species, but had chosen not to use them. That restraint demonstrated more power than any weapon could. Intelligence Operative G1 continued her work, but now her efforts focused on building rather than undermining. She worked with resistance movements in Council space, not to destroy the Council, but to reform it. She provided resources and guidance to species seeking independence or better treatment. She facilitated communication between the Council and Commonwealth to ensure negotiations proceeded smoothly. Her most important work involved identifying Council officials who genuinely